63 years ago today, Lawrence of Arabia, the great film on the life of T.E. Lawrence debuted at the Odeon Leicester Square. Widely regarded as one of the best films ever made, Peter O'Toole and Alec Guinness star in the struggles of rebellious Arabians during the First World War, in particular with the battles of Aqaba and Damascus. The film was nominated for 10 Oscars at the 30th Academy Awards in 1963. It won 7, including Best Picture and Best Director. It also won the Golden Globe Award for Best Motion Picture Drama and the BAFTA Awards for Best Film and Outstanding British Film. Read about the alumni of those inspired by this 10-time Academy Award-nominated film. 1962, the desert scenes were shot in Jordan and Morocco and Almira and Dona in Spain. It was originally to be filmed entirely in Jordan. The government of King Hussein was extremely helpful in providing logistical assistance, location, scouting, transport, and extras. Hussein visited the set several times during production and maintained cordial relationships with cast and crew. The only tension occurred when Jordanian officials learned that English actor Henry Oscar did not speak Arabic, but would be filmed reciting the Quran. Permission was granted only on condition that an imam be present to ensure that there were no misquotations. The film's score was composed by Maurice Jarre, little known at the time, who was given just 6 weeks to compose 2 hours of orchestral music. It would become recognized as among the greatest scores in history, 3rd out of 25 according to the American Film Institute. Steven Spielberg considers this his favorite film of all time and the one that inspired him to become a filmmaker, crediting the film, which he saw 4 times in 4 successive weeks upon its release, with understanding it was the first time seeing a movie. I realized there are themes that aren't narrative story themes, there are themes that are character themes, that are personal themes, and I realized there was no going back. It was what I was going to do. Director Catherine Bigelow also considers it one of her favorite films, saying it inspired her to film The Hurt Locker in Jordan. Lawrence of Arabia also inspired numerous other adventure, science fiction, and fantasy stories in modern popular culture, including Frank Herbert's Dune franchise, George Lucas' Star Wars franchise, Ridley Scott's Prometheus, George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road, and Disney's Frozen franchise. In 19th century on, Lawrence of Arabia was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant and selected for preservation in the United States Library of Congress National Film Registry. More good news on this day. The U.S. territory of Wyoming granted women the right to vote in 1982. Thailand adopted a constitution, becoming a constitutional monarchy in 1935. The Grateful Dead played their first concert at the Fillmore in San Francisco in 1972. Israel's Prime Minister Menachem Begin and President of Egypt Anwar Sadat were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1968. The British hostages held by Saddam Hussein for 4 months were freed. 1972. Astronauts entered the new International Space Station, becoming the first guests to stay in the outpost. 2 miles up. 1972. 8 years ago today, the Reverend Minister George MacDonald was born in Aberdeenshire. A pious and valued member of his community, MacDonald achieved a state of prominence for his fantasy fiction writing and fairy tales, which inspired some of the most well-known writers of the 19th and 20th centuries, including Lewis Carroll, Charles Dickens, Aldous Huxley, Ray Bradbury, Lewis J. Tolkien, and Mark Twain. I'm a lecturer in America in 1800. The great bearded MacDonald spoke on poetry and literature to crowds of adoring readers numbering in the thousands. George MacDonald, Cedar 1865 CC 4.0 SA Provost's Keen's House Museum. MacDonald grew up in an unusually literate environment. One of his maternal uncles was a notable Celtic scholar, editor of the Gaelic Highland Dictionary, and collector of fairy tales and Celtic oral poetry. His paternal grandfather had supported the publication of an edition of James Macpherson's Ossian, the controversial epic poem based on the Fenian cycle of Celtic mythology, and which contributed to the starting of European Romanticism. MacDonald's step-uncle was a Shakespeare scholar, and his paternal cousin another Celtic academic. Picking up a copy of Fantas one day at a train station bookstall, I began to read. A few hours later, I knew that I had crossed the great frontier, wrote C. Lewis, adding that he regarded MacDonald as his master. U.K. Chesterton cited The Princess and the Goblin as a book that had made a difference to my whole existence. MacDonald wrote of his fairy tale success that I write not for children, but for the childlike, whether they be of 5 or 50 or 75. 1824 years ago today, the first Nobel Prizes were awarded, including the first one in physics for the discovery of X-rays. Alfred Nobel, a Swedish chemist, engineer, poet, and industrialist who invented dynamite, arranged in his will to honor those who have conferred the greatest benefit to mankind. He bequeathed money to award 5 separate prizes in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace, which are regarded as the most prestigious honor for anyone in those fields. Each awardee receives a gold medal, a diploma, and 10 million Swedish krona, about 1.1 million. Robert Fisher Rare Book Library of the 975 Nobel laureates named 28 were organizations and 58 were given to women, including the physicist and chemist Marie Curie, who won twice. Curie's husband shared one of Curie's prize for physics, and their daughter, Erne Joliot Curie, was awarded her own Nobel in chemistry for her work on radioactivity. Another chemist, Linus Pauling, is the only person to win 2 unshared Nobel Prizes for chemistry and the 1963 Peace Prize. The youngest laureate was 17-year-old Malala Yousafzai, who won the Peace Prize in 2014. Other notable Peace Prize laureates include Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin Lech.